said, what the fuck, man? How do you have something like this in a place like Swansea?
He walked into another bar of his that he owned. He said 2 espressos there. And I'd never even heard of an espresso at that time. And 2 espressos came down. I watched him. He just picked his up, boom, necked it. I thought, right, I better do the same. Picked mine up, necked it, burnt all my mouth. I was just thinking, right, this isn't going well. And he just came down and he gave me a few quid and he said, look, sort yourself out, put this into storage, and just make sure you're all right.
I really want to do a root cause analysis of how the fuck has this happened. Tell me the biggest argument both of you have had on something major, and how did you tackle that?
I wear my heart on my sleeve. I can't help myself. I was devastated, I gotta be honest. It absolutely took the wind out of my sails because it definitely hit us hard.
Tell me what's next for the Ware-House Gym. Your tips to young entrepreneurs. Chris, Jason, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate your traveling all the way from Swansea to Manchester.
No problem.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
I know you didn't have a great train journey.
Yeah.
The usual shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of stops.
Yeah. And what was the apology about in the train that you're talking about?
I don't know what, in fairness to the guy who was on the tannoy, he couldn't have been any more apologetic, to be honest. It was actually quite funny in the end because he literally overkilled the apologies. So, yeah, he was very sorry, to say the least. That was, it kept us amused. Didn't it? So, yeah.
And you get the train money back, so we've got a couple of hours in Manchester later, so...
Fucking hell, I wish my trains get late. Great, guys. So, I don't know where to start this conversation because I was actually blown away when I went and saw your gym in Swansea.
Thank you.
I could have never expected something like this in a place like Swansea. And I remember I was traveling to Swansea and, people said, yeah, I mean, the fitness culture in Swansea is just about all right. It's a small place. And so I had no preconceived notions about how the fitness industry is going to be there. And then James Laurie took me to Ware-House Gym.
Yeah.
I said, what the fuck, man? How do you have something like this in a place like Swansea? And I know you've had it for 20 years now, almost 20 years, 18 years now.
Nearly 20 years.
Run me through the journey, Chris, in terms of how you started. I know you're a boxer, right? And I know bits and bobs of the story that you've got. But if you could run me through how you started, how was Ware-House Gym born?
Well, Ware-House Gym has evolved. So originally, the original idea was a fitness class called Funky Pump, and it was a boxing-based fitness class in a nightclub. So I was working as security on some of the nightclubs in Swansea, and looking at the big open spaces, the loud sound systems, the lights, but mainly the actual sort of like the footprint of the club and the fact that it wasn't being used during the day. That was where the idea came from, and to sort of speak to the club owners and ask them if they would allow us to put a fitness class in there. And I'll be honest, it had a few raised eyebrows at the time because, at that time, early 2000s...
you didn't see my eyebrows raise here.
No. It was very much... There was still a scene, so nightclubs were still busy. You could still smoke in the clubs, to go in and do a fitness class in there, which was almost traditionally in a leisure centre or a gym in a studio, nice sort of like clean cut place.
And which year is this, you said?
That was 2006 we started. So obviously prior to that was the idea, and I was personal training at the time. I was like obviously boxing, and just sort of I could feel something was coming. I was doing a little bit of personal training. I had a little studio which I was working out of. And part of me thought maybe that was it. Mm-hmm. I had this nice little studio. I had a good deal on the rent. I was having my personal training clients come in. I was, doing a few fitness challenges and, like building a nice little community and building up my, some days I'd have like 12 clients a day, 13 clients, some days on a Friday. And, my community was growing, but there was always, exchanging that time for money, really, by having 12 clients as a roof to what I could sort of earn.
And I'm sure you didn't, Chris, you didn't start with 12 clients. I'm sure you would have had a tough time growing that base initially.
Oh, big time. And that was why I was working on the door. I was working as security, so working late into the nights, back up in the morning, not as early. The fitness culture has changed again. Like early back then was 7 o'clock in the morning. It is, if I go to my gym now at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's busy. You know, back in like early 2000s, if you had a client in a 7, that was considered quite early back then. So yeah, we sort of dipped our toe in with that, and like the story I sort of tell is how it all started. There was a very well-known person in Swansea, for various reasons, I won't go into that, but he actually gave me a box, and he gave me a box. It had 2 medicine balls, a couple of resistance bands, like a textbook, you know, a couple of sort of like balance boards, you know, very sort of, you know, basic bits of kit. And that was how I started personal training. So I started going around various gyms, going to other people's houses, you know, just as a freelance personal trainer. I'd be parking my car 400 metres up the road because I was too embarrassed to park outside my clients' houses, struggling down with all the kit, and going in, giving them a session, and when they offered to help me pack the car back up, I would just shut them straight back down and say, no, it's fine, I'll take you back, because it was very much that sort of, you know, ducking and diving, to say the least. So when the idea came up about the fitness classes in the nightclubs, the club owner, his name was Steve, he was really cooperative. We set up a meeting. I was really nervous again going into this meeting because, you know, starting out in business, I thought it was going to be some sort of like, you know, big discussion, and he'd want to know the nitty gritty of it. He walked into another bar of his that he owned. He said, 2 espressos, yeah. And I'd never even heard of an espresso at that time. And 2 espressos came down. I watched him. He just picked his up, boom, necked it. I thought, right, I better do the same. Picked mine up, necked it, burnt all my mouth. I was just thinking, right, this isn't going well. He said, right, what do you want then? You know, and he did speak to me like that. He said, what do you want? I said, I was wondering if I could have the nightclub twice a week to start, maybe a Tuesday and a Thursday. Yeah, when do you want to start? I was like, I don't know, next week. He's like, yeah, cool, I'll give you the manager's number. And it was literally as easy as that. And that was like, I don't know, I think looking back in hindsight now, it was the first example of business doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
You buy into people, you know. We knew each other. I'd been around town and stuff, and he knew who I was, and I knew who he was. There was a sort of mutual respect there, and it was quite a sort of, you know, I don't know, almost not a particularly like engaging meeting. He just wanted to know the nitty gritty.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Chris, you're right. You know, a lot of times, and I have to tell this to people, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times we think it's overcomplicated. It isn't.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a reputation and you are from that place and you think you want to go for something, the best way is to ask, what's the worst case scenario? They'll say no. That's all.
It was exactly that. And, you know, I sort of left there and I thought, flipping heck, that was a lot easier than I thought it was. I thought I was going to have to persuade him. He didn't really care, if I'm honest, because I suppose from his point of view, the club was shut. He's not opening the door, his manager's opening the door. We went down there, and you know, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like plain sailing. The club was often in the same state on a Tuesday night as it was left on a Saturday. So, you know, some nights I'd go in there and it would be in a right mess. So there would be those type of things, and then sound system wouldn't work, or, you know, the CDJs or the turntables at the time would be not working. I'd be running around like borrowing them. It was, you know, it was very much as you would imagine a 24-year-old starting a business. It was all over the shop, to be honest, for want of a better word. It was you know, totally reactive. You know, I had a Tupperware like pot where I'd take the money. Most people I'd let in for free because I was just chuffed anybody was turning up. And that was how it sort of worked. And then it just grew and grew. And I sort of built it up from about 3. And then I always remember going back to my father's house and I said, oh, Dad, you should have seen it in there tonight. It was unbelievable atmosphere. And he was like, oh, how many did you have? And I said, there was 6 people in there. And he was like, oh, right, okay. And then it quickly grew to 12. And then I always remember the night, I called them like the gym bunnies. They were like the local group of girls that used to do classes. And they all turned up this one particular night. So they bumped the numbers right up to about, I don't know, 20 to 30 maybe.
Wow.
So like almost like double the class. And I just watched the reaction I had out of them. And I thought, right, we're on to something here. So that built and built, and, you know, all of a sudden it became very popular in Swansea. I told a little white lie then to another nightclub owner with a bigger club. I told him I was having a lot more people than what I was. I sort of...
It's called marketing, it's not a lie.
Yeah, you know what's going on. And
what are you talking about?
Yeah. He went for it, and we then made Escape Nightclub, which was the biggest nightclub in Swansea and probably South Wales. That was our home then for the next few years. And that was when it really sort of skyrocketed. Jason came involved in the business as well, and we just pushed on with probably what I would say, like almost like definitely unheard of classes in South Wales. I'm sure, you know, places like London and Manchester might be different, but at the time, having 150 people in the class every night, you know, it was very much unheard of, you know.
And Chris, why do you think that was happening? You know, so a lot of people have put on classes, and it's been going on from, you know, if you remember Jane Fonda.
Yes.
You know, like it's been happening for ages. What was the differentiator that got people into doing your classes?
I think the fact that it was in somewhere like unique in terms of obviously a nightclub. I think the fact that I was known as someone that really enjoyed the music, especially house music. So, you know, I was passionate about that. I was a part of like the clubbing community, I suppose. So I was in the nightclubs, like, you know, thriving off the music. So there was almost like, it was like twofold. I think people could see how much the music meant to me. Obviously being a boxer as well, you had the technique and the sort of intensity and the sort of passion to deliver the class at the right sort of tempo and the right aggression. I just think it just changed the fitness sort of culture of classes, whereas, you know, before it might have been in a leisure centre studio, all in front of a mirror, you know, probably quite sort of like sterile or I don't know what word would you describe like those classes, Jason? You know, like,
yeah, just very clean. I think the class is always an extension of someone's night out on the weekend, and that's kind of what we've carried through to the gym. I think people don't want to let go that Saturday when they were out, albeit they were drunk and, you know, like out and about. This was kind of Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. You could still get that buzz from the music. I think another big part was this DJ was playing punch bags. You're actually letting out the frustration on a bag. It's not like a step up or, you know, like just a circuit class that had been kind of predominant. It was a different, more aggressive environment, I suppose. And the results, people were getting the results, weren't they? You know, they were coming out there with a workout. They weren't going and, you know.
We were sometimes doing like hour and 40-minute classes. So it was very high intensity, very sweaty, you know, very no nonsense. The fact that we were in a nightclub, like boxing bags and boxing gyms were always, I know you had to be a certain type of person maybe to go to a boxing gym, or if you were part, you know, maybe it was like, you know, in the family and you sort of like filtered into it through that, whereas we were opening this like high intensity boxing workout to the masses. So you'd have like a middle-aged woman training next to a professional boxer, and I think the fact that everybody could train together, you know, really sort of made it that feel-good factor. You know, you'd have literally, like I said, professional boxers training next to a 4-year-old dinner lady.
So which is where my next question was coming, you know. Boxing is typically very intimidating. You know, a lot of times, and I'll tell you, running a budget gym in the past, you know, when you put a boxing ring in the gym, you're actually turning away people from the gym because people get scared of it. They don't want to go into a place where, you know, there's a certain way people look at boxing gyms. This is definitely not the place where a middle-aged woman would go in.
No.
For no other reason but the fact that, you know, they feel it's like professional boxing. It's a different kind of environment. It's not the vibe that you would want to be in. How did you change that mindset where how did you get those first few people in?
I think the fact that predominantly, I would say for the first 2 years of starting Funky Pump, it was 98% women in my classes.
Really?
But when we introduced the punch bags then, that drew the men in. So because the women were there first, I think the men will always follow. And, you know, like, I'm not going to sort of like beat around the bush. There was a lot of women in the classes, and it's the same as these nightclubs in Vegas, Ibiza. You get the women there, the men will come, and I'm not saying that's what they were coming for. It was an amazing workout. It really, really was. But there was just that energy in the room, which you get when you've got, you know, different sexes in the room at any time. And
a middle-aged dinner lady still wants to punch someone in the face. You mean, like, to get the aggression out? And I think the whole point of the punch bag was that release of frustration in it, Chris. Instead of people on the pads and other places, you're not getting that level of like, you know, go in for it for an hour. So, you know, no matter who you are, whether it was, you know, the world champion boxers that we've had in there, or like we've had 70-year-old ladies, you know, they're still kind of on the same wavelength in terms
still
of
getting the same out of it, really. You know, what is 80% to the boxer? You know, if that woman's giving 80% or 85, 90%, then that's still, it's relative to her, isn't it? And I think the fact that it was that nightclub environment was the game changer for us, because when we were doing, like, you know, marketing, going into businesses, like, I don't know, in Tesco's, Asda's, you know, giving out flyers, when I'd explain the class to people, they'd say, oh, it's dark, is it? And you could see them, they sort of, they're like, oh, I like the sound of that. So they felt a little bit more comfortable with the environment. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I know lots and lots of gyms have gone for that that chain of thought now. But I think back in 2006, we were definitely one of the first ones to do that.
2006 gyms were very different. They were you didn't have that kind of a vibe in the gym. If you see today, most gyms have moved on towards the nightclub kind of a you know, the entire. If you were to look at the fitness industry 2006 to 2010, you would look at typical gyms which looked like offices. Either they were like offices, like a budget gym, or they were really old school bodybuilding gyms. There was nobody who was doing what you were doing. And Jason, when you came into this industry, you're not from the industry, were you?
No.
And when you came in and, you know, joined Chris on his journey, what was your first reaction when you saw you know, something so different? Did you think it is going to work? Because a lot of times people get scared when they see something they've not seen in the past.
No, so I just come out of uni myself. And I had a business at the time doing like clocking in systems, biometric clocking in systems with my cousin. And Chris was actually training my auntie at the time. Just that's how it came about. In a group thing, like he said earlier, you know, going down their houses and getting them trained. And my first thought was this product would work in the uni environment, because you had basically everything had a student halls centralised on a campus, didn't have many places to go. You know, they all had the rugby, the football, the netball, the hockey teams and stuff, and that was kind of what we initially came to Chris with. It wasn't, Chris wanted the clocking in system so that he wasn't using the Tupperware box anymore. Like, that's literally what it was, wasn't it? So that you could use the something that actually was not pen and paper anymore, and it evolved on from that. So I probably was on a different journey, because I was going to uni, going out all the time every week instead of actually going to uni, like, you know, instead of going to classes. So it was like the evolution. And I will say, when me and Brian, who was my cousin at the time, who was in with us, when we did go up to that first class, we were literally blown away, because it was literally people out to the door, you know. And that was in a nightclub that had, you know, I know the numbers aren't the same, but maybe 600 people on the Saturday. When they spaced out in the class, it was totally full. Everyone was fully engaged. Everyone was leaving with a sweat. And I think the biggest thing was that, like, difference in the demographic of people. Like, you know, there was people who didn't look like they trained, people who looked like they've trained for forever. There was old, there was young, there was girls, there was boys. So that's where we thought that there was definitely something in it, you know, legs to move it on with Chris, obviously down to other areas. Uni was my initial thought, just because I've literally come out of there and I thought there was that captive audience. We did dabble a little bit with like Cardiff Uni and stuff, and in the Swansea Uni, we just found that it was like the students were lazy as well, like, you know, the same as when I was there. So it wasn't that same fitness.
It's a bit stop-start with the students as well. Term time, not term time. Exams.
They're out midweek, like they go away for holidays, you know, and stuff. So it wasn't the same. But yeah, my reaction was, you know, there was definitely legs in it, because there were so many different types of people, all getting a workout, all pay as you go as well. There wasn't any memberships, you know, so people were...
The good old days.
The good old days, cash, and it, you know, it was just, there was a business, definitely.
And Chris, when you started Funky Punk, it's called Funky Punk, right?
Funky Pump, yeah.
Yeah, Funky Pump. When you started Funky Pump, it was obviously boxing based, because that's your background, right? And if I were to look at your boxing background, how would you say you came up with a concept which was not purely boxing?
No.
You're obviously a personal trainer.
Yeah.
But you're also professional.
Yeah.
You're also a boxer, right? the first few people who came into your class, I would have assumed were boxers.
No.
How?
I think because I'd had a personal training background and I had a little network of people who sort of heard about me and stuff. In the first instance, I was literally just recruiting people I knew. Because I worked on the door, I could speak to hundreds and hundreds of people every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because I was working on the door of the club. So I say, can you come next Tuesday now? I'd be nagging people almost to come. And they'd be coming in, bear in mind back then, I worked on the door 6 nights a week. So Tuesday was the only night off. So you'd see a lot of people. So when you look at everything like marrying up, I was on the front door, you just see people, fancy a Tuesday now? Yeah. Oh, you said you were coming next week. You didn't come, right? I'll definitely be there next Tuesday. It was very much that type of thing. Bear in mind now, I wasn't on Facebook. When I found out about Facebook, I couldn't believe I could do it, right? It was mental. And this guy, he said, Chris, you got to start using Facebook. And I was like, right, okay. So he said, right, write a message out now that you want to send out to people. So I just wrote it on his laptop or whatever it was on. And he went, press send. And I was like, well, what are you doing? I said, how much is that going to cost now? And he's like, no, it's free.
Yeah, you couldn't believe it. I remember my first time when I was introduced to Facebook. I still remember, I was on my way to Everest Base Camp.
Right.
And we met some uni students from the UK. I was in India back then. I used to work with Standard Chartered Bank. And I was on my way on the base camp. We met somebody and these kids said, are you on Facebook? So the fuck is that? And we're like, no, there's this place. And my first question was, so how much does it cost? So it doesn't cost anything.
I know.
So,
but it changed the game, that didn't it? So, that was just, I was on it all the time. And as you can imagine, because it was just the best way to reach lots of people at the same time. And, it was too good to be true in a way. So that, it maintained us being able to keep that sort of presence, I suppose, in people's, at the time I think it was more on people's computers back then before the phones really, wasn't it? So, it hadn't exploded, but, people would log in and it would be in their inbox. So, the first women, they were definitely women in the first instance that wanted to come to the class. And, I can remember the first couple of men, and there's one particular good friend of ours, Wayne. He was one of the first guys that turned up, but he was a serious trainer. Excuse me. So when he turned up, I knew that it was going to start gaining momentum because he was well known for being fit, well known for being a man's man type of thing. So it was great to have someone like that in. Who could say, Wayne's doing it, so it must be a pretty good worker. It's not just for girls. So slowly but surely, that sort of preconception of what type of class it was slowly drifting away. And now I'd say we're about 50-50. Which
so how did Funky Pump become a gym? When did this how did you bridge this journey?
So basically we were in Escape and the nightclub industry was failing quickly. So I could tell it was dying. It went from being open maybe 3 or 4 nights a week, then to 2, then only a Saturday. So the writing was on the wall. So we were having more people into our fitness classes than what we were into the nightclub. So
really?
Well, yeah, we're on the Saturdays, towards the end, the nightclub industry had sort of gone. And
which year was this?
I would say I was 2009, would you say, Jason?
Yeah, 2009, 2010. The bigger nightclubs that was, wasn't it? The more, and the house music, it's changed. It changed when you had to invest back into nightclubs. People weren't just happy with the old decor for years and years ago, or the old sound systems and stuff like that. Because bear in mind, Escape used to be the main one for dance music down in our area. But then once that kind of arse fell out of that, you could just see it because it was getting dirtier and dirtier in the week when it people weren't opening up. Do you know what I mean? You could just see the.
So did you not feel at that point of time, because the dance, because this entire culture of the nightclub is dying, it's going to have an impact on Funky Pump, or in terms of people not liking that kind of music, or those, the entire. Did you see a shift in their mindset Did it not?
No, I
scare
didn't,
you?
because the music definitely changed, but we didn't play the music that was sort of like coming through. The music changed to a little bit more like EDM for a period of time, which didn't suit our classes. Our classes were very much about the uplifting,
Right.
trance, like the sort of like the soulful house, the like the euphoric stuff, which, you know, builds you up to like when you're training. So, you know, our music was not going to be affected by the trends that were happening in the nightclubs. So the owner of the nightclub, he phoned me up and he said, look, Chris, he said, I don't want you to lose your stuff. He said, the business is going into liquidation. He said, get all your stuff out. This was on a Friday night. So I was like, oh my God, I can't, you know, we'd had a good run at it, and, you know, it was loads of fun. And I thought, you know what, maybe that is it, and it's back to the personal training or whatever. So I stood outside the nightclub. I had about 50 punch bags outside, and for my dad. And I said, Dad, you're not going to believe it. I said, Escape's closing down, got to get all the stuff out. And he's like, all right, whatever. You know, what are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. So, you know, didn't really have any ideas. Spoke to another one of my friends, very successful businessman in Swansea, and explained to him the situation. And he said, I'll be down now. And this is like probably one of the nicest things that anyone's ever done for me. And he flew straight down. It was on a Friday night. Like, he's got a family, he's got a massive business at the time, and he just came down and he gave me a few quid, and he said, look, he said, there's a few quid to sort yourself out, put this into storage, and just make sure you're all right. So me and him were standing outside the nightclub, and we're looking down this lane, you know, similar to some of the buildings around here, like very old, like traditional sort of buildings. And we've looked down, and there's a big building at the end of the road, and it said "To Let" on it. So I was like, there's a building down there to let. And so started making a few inquiries now over the next couple of days, next couple of weeks. Got in touch with the owner. He said, yeah, he said, I want to sell it. It's been in the family for years. I want to sell it. We said, can we just store all our equipment there in the first instance? And he was like, yeah, but I do want to sell it. So we were like, right, how much is it up for? Can I tell a story?
Yeah.
And so it was up for about £220,000 at the time. So we were like, nah, we're not buying it for that type of thing. So we had the keys. So we were the only people who could access it because all my stuff was in there. So when the agent was wanting to do viewings, he'd have to phone me to come and open up. So what me and my friend...
I know where this is getting.
Yeah. So we were going in the day before, flooding the place, putting a couple of inches of water all the way through it. You know, just basically trying to put people off until we were in a position to purchase the building. And we knocked walls down and everything, didn't we? And
You got to do what you got to do.
We had to do what we had to do. So
Did buy it in the end,
yeah,
didn't it? So
we
it's
bought
fine.
it in the end.
Did you then?
Yeah, we bought it in the end, and
That was the home of the
and that
Ware-House.
was the first gym. So we got it at a very discounted price. I can't understand why. And
I know exactly.
yeah,
why.
and and that was where we.
Is that water you're drinking?
Yeah. That was where we had our home then for.
Well, before this one,
10, yeah.
before this gym that you came to see, so, 10 plus years, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how big was that?
It's about 1,800 square foot downstairs and pretty much the same upstairs.
So it was very small. Looking
Yeah.
at what I saw now.
Yeah.
So we had a boxing gym upstairs and a bit of a functional area. And when I say functional area, I mean one ski erg, one rower, no treadmills, kettlebells,
one
dumbbells.
third and fourth not second hand, third hand, fourth hand stuff. We were the budget buyers, like the eBay has been the places. We'll take something out of here. That was what it was,
Jason, I keep telling this to people. Gyms are not about equipment and not about the leases that you get, the spaces you get. It's about the kind of training you do. It's about the people. The community. And I think the community is not only your members, it's also your trainers. And I know that you spend a lot of time in training your trainers. And I know how much effort you have to put in to get the right trainers, because people are not really asked about training themselves to be good trainers. Everybody goes for one personal training course and they think they've done it all. So I remember coming to your gym, and one of the things I couldn't help notice, what made you get inspired by Ibiza? And it looks like you're in Ibiza when you're there and you see all the quotes that are put up. How did this happen?
It was just the obvious thing to do. We're so, like, we love Ibiza so much. Like I said, from the age of 18, being back and forth there a minimum of 2 or 3 times a season, and back in the day, I think the first time I went there was 2000, so way before the business, and it was literally jump on a flight, no hotel booked, out there, crashing friends out in rooms, just however
That's the way to do it?
Yeah, however we could get there, we got there type of thing. And it was just used to love the place, just the music, the atmosphere, the vibe, like millions and millions of other people do. You speak to anyone from Liverpool, Manchester, London, there'll be someone, saying this. It was just a unique place as far as I was concerned. And the fact that I had live DJs and the music in my fitness classes in our business, it just reinforced my love for it even more. So, it was boxing and house music. That was what the business was built on. And that is why, we wanted to carry that through with the design of the gym. The quote that I think you saw on the wall, it just says, we've got all the logos of all the clubs in Ibiza, and it's almost like a little tribute to the energy and the sort of the feelings that we had when you're out there clubbing, you're with your friends, you're meeting people, the songs that resonate with you when you come back from holiday, that is how powerful music is. And the fact that we could sort of filter that into our business and into our gym, the second you walk in the gym, I feel as if you can feel that. And that, I think, is what stands us apart from lots of other gyms.
Yeah.
There's a real passion behind it.
Everything's about being social, and I think a lot of the design elements, as you've seen, is more like a boutique hotel than a gym. So we had a bit of like it was the easiest conversation ever. It was like, is it going to be in a leisure centre? These tiles, no. Yes, right, we're not having them. That was our design brief to each other when we designed the gym that you've seen. It was like, would you have it there? And we'll go the opposite, to just try and make it an environment that people didn't think that they were coming into a gym. So it wasn't very sterile. It wasn't like get in and get out quickly. We wanted somewhere where people are there to socialise. They're there to meet. They're there to. You touched on it earlier with the boxing gym. Is that we put the punch bags and we put the judo and the ring open so everyone can see, because now probably like the kids boxing, the judo, the jiu-jitsu's some of the busiest classes we have, because the people on the treadmills can see people doing it, and they realise it's not like barbaric and just people constantly getting filled in. Basically, it's part of the gym, and I think that is where that Ibiza thing came. Just everything's high energy, everything's like social, and that Ibiza thing can be applied to Mykonos, like Liverpool, whatever you want. It's just it's the same
music,
kind of, it's the music and the energy and everything. And I think like that comes across throughout the gym, and even up to the cafe and into to everywhere. We've tried to carry that all the way through.
I think one thing I noticed is that in the fitness industry, if you look at it, a lot of people go to the gym because they have to go to the gym, not because they want to go to the gym. What you've changed is you've actually got people to want to come to the gym. And I think that's a very difficult battle to win, And I've run budget gyms in the past. You have that surge of people coming in the early months, Jan, Feb, March, when people say, I want to transform myself, I want to do this, the New Year's resolution, and then people drop off. I know that there are people in your gym who turn up 2-3 times in a day.
Definitely.
So what the fuck are you guys doing that people are turning up 3 times in a day?
I just think we had a lady from the BBC in the gym last night interviewing myself and like lots of the members, and she couldn't understand it. Like her first question, how often do you come to the gym? And I would say pretty much everyone. She went on to say, at least once a day, more often than not twice. And she's like, what do you mean? Is there anything else to do in Swansea? And like, she probably got a point. But I think because you got the cafe, because you got the sauna, because you got but Chris,
you're giving credit to things that actually make no difference. Most clubs today, you look at any, without naming any of them, you look at any leisure centers, they've got exactly the same infrastructure. I would go to the extent better infrastructure than you in terms of equipment and the way they've done the place up and the best of technology.
Yeah.
But they don't have people turning up
No.
those many times in a day.
No, and you know, it's definitely that. I think people know how passionate we are about it, and slowly but surely, I couldn't. When I was speaking to this lady last night, I said it always amazes me how passionate our members are about the gym, how protective they are.
Yeah, you got.
Yeah.
I remember when the lady I met who runs the gym,
Hayley.
Hayley. When I spoke with her, she was a member of the gym.
Yeah.
And because she was part of the community, she said, I'm going to take this, and you had a job opening. She said, I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to leave my job because I'm so passionate about it. I'm a part of the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. And especially she had a very good job within the civil service.
Yeah,
And like,
Probably the opposite two places to work, isn't it? The civil service to Ibiza gym, so she's gone from full circle, but she's a proper asset to the gym. Hayley is, she loves everything about from the ground up.
So how have you been able to create that sense of ownership for people? A lot of times employees are employees,
Yeah.
Employment is a contract, right?
Yeah.
How do people go above and beyond? It's not a contract anymore. What have you been able to do to create that, the thing within the team? And I met your trainers. You've had people with you for 10 years now?
Yeah, maybe
15.
more. Yeah.
Fuck, come on.
Well, like Dylan,
Doesn't
who was
fucking
with
happen.
us today, he came on work experience as a 14-year-old, and he hasn't been anywhere else since. He came on work experience, and he's never left, and now he's got an amazing business in his own right. And I love to be able to see that. But I think the music is a big thing. I think the style of training, I think the fact that we are so hands-on with it as owners. I still take classes. I'm to train every morning in the gym. We're part of it as much as the members, and I think they like that.
And it's a social environment as a workplace, isn't it? So
I really want to do a root cause analysis of how the fuck has this happened. No, honestly, because whatever you're saying, a lot of people are doing this.
yeah,
They've still not got what you've got.
Yeah, I know, and I think the fact that we do events, there's a massive social element to it. We're very proactive in terms of
it's all community, innit?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Is the staff and the customers is part of a bigger community. So again, like we said, instead of it being a sterile environment, in, out, you're just there to train. We want people to stay in a cafe. When we do raves, they come to the raves. When we do the guerrilla games, they come to the stuff, and it keeps people there, doesn't it? They become your salespeople.
So let's talk about your events now. No gym does this. When I was told, I was absolutely I couldn't believe it that you convert the gym into a nightclub. And so you started with a nightclub converting into a fitness studio. Now you're doing it the fucking other way around, where you convert the fitness studio into a nightclub.
Yeah.
And I was actually shown pictures of before and after. I'm going to probably on the podcast, when we do the edit, I'm going to put in that and to show it to people.
Yeah.
So Hayley showed me that this is midnight after the thing, or 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And you're ready for the class.
Yeah, 1
a.m.
a.m. and then it's open at 6. So we turn it around. Yeah.
So what made you do these? How did this idea of events come into play? Because that was not your play initially, right? Was it?
I think we applied for the alcohol license.
Yeah, but what made you do that? I mean, I've owned gyms. I would have never thought of doing
that.
that.
Well, first, what we did first was we took 2 units, wasn't it? So we had 2 units, which is the main gym, and really did.
This is the new one.
This is the new one. So the 2 you've been in, and basically spent all the money that we had. But the unit next door was a COVID casualty, so they were like a motorbike helmet supplier, and it came available. A big space, the same, was 8,000 square foot. And Johnson's Paint or one of these big national companies was going to take it. So the landlord that they're local people who own the estate, they said, this Johnson's Paint's going to take it. If you don't take it, then, it's going to be gone for 15 years. So we kind of very much couldn't afford it, but kind of took it. But then we had this big open space. So with limited budget, we put some AstroTurf down, and we put a couple, it was what it was, just AstroTurf, a few machines. And the first one we had was John Fury. He was doing a bit of a tour, just a talking tour, tables and stuff. So we got him in, and then that kind of evolved bigger and bigger. And then as cash flow went on, we put mezzanine floor in, we put a bar, we added some stuff, and it become what it is now. So it's like a nice, big, functional, high rocks environment, like that style of training. But was almost a bit wasted. And I think it goes back to that Ibiza thing, doesn't it? Like Amnesia and the big clubs, big kind of mezzanine floor all the way around. It was almost perfect, and there's no big club in Swansea that could cater for it. So we were out in Ibiza, and we were in that place when we the hub.
Yeah.
Just trying to think of like people who we could get, because it's quite hard to like book a big DJ. You've got to go through like ranks and stuff. And we were in this shared office space in the middle of Ibiza called the Hub. And this guy came out on his mobile phone. Literally, this is how it all came about. And he was speaking really loudly when he was on.
Speaking really brash.
And he was talking about DJs. And we pulled him aside, and it happened to be he was a promoter that had something to do with bringing Sankeys, which is relevant for us here in Manchester, back to the UK. He was like sub-branding it or something, wasn't he?
Yes.
Had a conversation, and it spiraled from there. And we did the first Sankeys that in the UK, was it?
Yeah.
It was our first one that we did then, which was about 1,800 people.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was our first one. But we kind of made that, forced us, because he was like this date on it, and we had like a month and a half to get it ready, get firearms, do all the stuff that a proper nightclub would have. But to be fair, it kind of pushed our timeline on, didn't it? It made us, we had to get it done, whatever means necessary, because there was going to be so many people. It was going to be daunting. It wasn't going to be 400 people for John Fury. And then that kind of kicked it on then, didn't it?
So we knew the potential then. One thing we sort of skipped really was we started doing boxing shows in 2009, white collar boxing shows. So we always used to just hire the local nightclub, and they were just a huge success. They were, they really...
So not in the gym?
Not in the gym. This is why we were in the previous gym, the smaller gym.
Yeah.
We just used to use the local nightclub. And it was brilliant. It was the first, I think it was actually the first white collar show in Wales. Obviously it happened in London, but white collar, obviously Swansea's not like a white collar city, is it? So it was just local sort of businessmen and self-employed and stuff. And I'd train them all together and, split them into two teams, box on the night. We used to sell 1,500 tickets to that, and we won awards for the actual nights, because it was labelled Swansea's most glamorous night of the year. It was all like strictly black tie. All the girls used to really go to town on their outfits and stuff. But more than anything, it was a massive influx to sort of like keep our head above water financially, because of the situation we were in. So when we did take this new, bigger unit now in the new gym, that gave us the space to be able to do our own shows in our own gym. And because we had the drinks license, it was just an amazing opportunity, because whereas obviously the nightclubs were taking the revenue off the drinks being bought, we were able to do that. And that is, again, what has helped us keep on improving, buying new equipment, improving the gym. That area now is almost unrecognisable to when we first took it. But it's very much, every single penny's been pumped back into the gym, because, now you've got 6 gear, 6 rowers, 6 sprint treads, 6 air bikes, 4 squat racks, another 6 underneath the mezzanine floor, large astroturfed area. We've got a Pilates reformer studio upstairs, obviously 2 bars, dance studio, 15 punch bags downstairs as well, where kids can train. So, and that is all within that one open space. But the events have definitely allowed us to be able to do that through the cash flow, which is we wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. So by I think having that drinks license early on was almost like a godsend, because it allowed us to do the events from quite soon from opening, which then allowed us to reinvest into the gym.
So we got the small bar that you might have gone to upstairs. So we going back to that community element. So we have. It's random, because you think, why would someone have a 30th birthday in their gym, or why would their engagement and stuff, or even weddings we've had, because people kind of feel safe there, so it's part of the community. We have probably 2-3 kids parties on the weekend where they put bouncy castle on the AstroTurf, and that kind of then I think reinforces this whole community element within the gym.
So you're more like a community center there. You also, Jason, you also mentioned cash flow, and I know Chris, what's the role that Jason has played in terms of, because I mean, I've spoken to both of you. You're very different personalities.
Yeah.
As people, in terms of skill sets, also you've got very different
Yeah.
skill sets. How's been, when he came into the business early
Yeah.
on, and he helped you grow the business? What was his role, and did you have tough times where you had difference of opinion, and how did you
big
manage
time.
that?
You know, we still have difference of opinion now, but I think because we are very, very different, like we don't intrude onto the other person, sort of thing. Like, I don't know if Jason agrees with this, but like the way I see it is like I sort of come up with an idea and then he sort of makes it happen, type of thing, in terms of how we can facilitate it, I suppose, like financially, and how we work things round, and he's just switched on like that, whereas like I don't really get into it in that sense. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we both got the same vision, I think. And that needs to be like totally and utterly aligned. But what we bring to the table, like Jason won't mind me saying, like, I'm very much hands-on fitness wise, and Jason is much more making the operation sort of take over, especially with the finances, and just ducking and diving, basically.
Yeah. Dodging.
Yeah.
No, I think it's more like Chris touched on it. I think Chris has a raw idea, like in terms of, I think he's like a genius in the fitness ideas of stuff all the time. Some of them are absolutely mental and I have to squash them straight away, and then some of them not so. But we kind of work on the same path. It's the same goal. It's the same kind of exit. We've got some other stuff on the go that's separate. But I do think you need that kind of seesaw balance between...
Tell me the biggest argument both of you have had on something major, and how did you tackle that?
We had many really big
No,
ones.
we don't know what, right? I look around at other people in business, and they've, we've been in business now over 15 years. That's a pretty long time.
It is.
And I know I'm like probably considered like quite a strong personality, and like probably not the easiest of people to maybe be in business with, because like once I get an idea in my head, it's very much like full throttle. So I think Jason's personality balances that up a little bit. In terms of, we haven't had any, I think we've done a few business ventures outside of the gym, which I think at the time
stretched ourselves a bit. Yeah. It was probably that.
And like I feel as if that was probably at the point where I know we were probably moving slightly in different directions, because but we tried it, we learned loads of lessons from them, and they've probably stood us in good stead for what we're doing now. So there's loads of there's
it's how you manage it, innit? Like arguments, you can butt heads. I think we don't butt heads because we're two different people. And he's like Welsh champion boxer in it, so I'm not going to argue with him or trying to go like dodge. But I think because we don't clash like that and we're on the same page, that's why we don't argue so much. There's loads of tension things, like, is this a good idea, is this not? But it's kind of how you play it out. And as long as you're both on the same page of where you're trying to get to, and there's no like, greed and someone's going that way, I think that's always what the problem is. I think it always comes down to money and people going on different things in it, but we don't have that.
I don't. And like, you do care about money. I've got 4 kids. Like, I want to have a nice life and stuff, but that was never my priority. I just wanted it to be a success. Like, so I think that has driven us forward more than anything. I think if it had been about money, we would have probably packed it in.
Oh, definitely.
12 years ago, because it wasn't making any money. We weren't in a position. So the passion and the desire to make it a success has sort of binded us together even more, because we were up against it, like, so especially like, I think for me, like, I'm quite, as long as I can train and I can sort of enjoy my time with my family and stuff, I'm pretty much happy. The fact that along the way nicer things will hopefully come, and our lifestyle has changed dramatically over the last couple of years, because the business is moving forward. But I think we were both determined to make it work, and I think it's like that famous old saying, isn't it? People generally give up just before it goes bang.
Yeah.
And I was very much like that. When we were in the old gym, I was literally weighing up. I was thinking, right, we've had the big classes in Northampton Lane. We've done, we've got busy boot camps. We've got busy funky pump classes. I either dip out now and me and Jason were talking about, like, you know, potentially buying some student properties and stuff, or we go and absolutely go head to head with these big commercial gyms. And that's what we've done. You know, our biggest competition in Swansea now is the obvious ones. Is probably everyone's biggest competition is JD's. You know, we've got the local authority leisure centre gyms. The village gym is potential competition, but, you know, when I say potential competition, it's no competition really, but they've still got 2,500 members, so it would be nice if we could have some of them as well.
Just territory a little bit. Yeah.
So, and don't get me wrong, then you've got the smaller independents, which again is a little bit of competition. So, you know, we are right up for it in terms of like going head to head with these big sort of corporations, these big companies.
So let's go back to, you know, when you 2006-7. I'm sure, you know, there was a time where you were the only big box gym, and then the brands came in. How did you tackle that? I'm sure, you know, I remember my days, and, you know, when some big gym chain would announce opening a club, then I would go, what the fuck is going to happen now? It's scary, isn't it?
Honestly, I remember it absolutely clearly. I remember it was around Christmas time, and I was actually in bed in the day, which sounds terrible. It wasn't just being a lazy bum. I was just lying on my bed for this particular day, and I seen something on my phone that Exercise for Less were coming, and I think it was a tenner at the time. And I can remember my shins and my feet just started sweating, right? Because that was obviously gonna hit me, like, you know,
really hard.
Like we were at the time, I think we were about £40 or £50 a month, because like we equated it. People were coming, you know, every day, sometimes twice a day. If they're paying £5 a class, or, you know, £10 a day, £50 for a month is still a good deal. When then this Exercise for Less came along and offered £10, all the gym, all the classes. And I could see all these comments on their Facebook page, I think it was at the time. And I was like seeing people I recognised, thinking, oh no, they're going. Like, I know I was even texting someone, I was like, oh, are you joining Exercise for Less, do you? You know, like, I wear my heart on my sleeve, I can't help myself. And I was devastated, I gotta be honest. It absolutely took the wind out of my sails, because it definitely hit us hard. And like, you know, I sort of carry that with me now. It's 100% scarred me, like, you know, because when you've thrown your absolute heart and soul into something, and then a big corporation comes in, it must be exactly the same as these butchers and bakers felt on the high street when Tesco's came in, or I don't know, you know, these sort of like
powerhouses,
independent businesses that get overrun by these sort of big ones that are just coming in and cleaning you out. And that's why I feel so strongly about it, because they've devalued exercise, and that, for me,
because they're saying Exercise for Less. When he was there, devalued it.
But the fact that they can put a £10 price tag on keeping yourself fit, I think, is an insult to exercise. It's the most valuable thing you can do for your body. You know, it should, you know, and I know what their argument will always be, we want to be able to offer it to everyone. Like, I know that's not what they give a monkeys about. All they want is for thousands and thousands of people to sign up and not turn up. They can't possibly want 6,000 people to be active members in their gyms. They can't. You know, the gyms can't. They can't sort of absorb that in terms of the volume. So they want the people. They've made their price point at a position where people will pay it, because they like to think psychologically they're a member of a gym.
Yeah, even if they don't go. Yeah.
They don't care if it's because it's only a tenner. So psychologically they're a member of the gym. That makes them feel a bit better, and then they don't come, but they don't want to cancel it either. And
we call them sleepers.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, exercise, especially now, especially after COVID, it's been rammed down our throat, the importance of health. How can you say that being able to train for, I don't know, I know it's crept up a little bit now, but even £20 a month, that's ridiculous when you think that a coffee is £4 or £4.50. You know, people sort of sometimes raise an eyebrow at our membership being £35 a month. That's £1.16 a day. £1.16 a day for, you've been to the gym, you've seen this, the equipment we've got is world class, the instructors we've got, the fact that you can park there. You know, you've got saunas in both changing rooms. You know, you can eat there. You could basically live there. And it's £1.16 a day. If that gym was in London, it'd be 120 quid a month.
Yeah.
maybe more.
Yeah, 100% more than that.
And I know that it's all relative, but that's how you could probably sense by the way I'm talking to you. I feel as if the commercial gyms, they haven't, you know, they've got a business model, and they've they've nailed it. In fairness to them, they have nailed it, and it's up to us now, the independents, the smaller boutiques. We've got to offer something else. We're never going to be able to compete with price.
No.
So that means we've got to be better in every other aspect, and that's why it gives you the fire in your belly, really, to make sure you've got the best instructors, make sure you're living and breathing it yourself, make sure you've got sort of unique ideas and other revenue streams, because that way you can keep on improving the gym, you can keep on progressing, you can keep adding things. You know, these gyms will slowly deteriorate because, you know, that's just what happens.
No
It's a bit like what's
soul,
happening to David Lloyd's. You know, it's what happened to the Virgin Active gyms. You know, eventually it fizzles, doesn't it? Whereas when you've got like real passion behind it, you don't let it fizzle, because when something's broken, you try and get it fixed. When something new comes out, you get something new. You know, you constantly evolve in your business.
Think on that timeline, Samir, so when we had the gym in Northampton Lane, which was mainly a boxing gym and a bit of functional, and then maybe 3 years later we had a gym in Port Talbot up the road, but it was very much like a spit and sawdust bodybuilding gym. But we were going up and down the M4, even as far as Cornwall, Bristol. We had a little try there, Carmarthen, Haverfordwest, where we were like sub-franchising Funky Pump. So some was in very like low-end independents, some high-end, some in community centres. But I think that whole budget thing probably caused us to pause growth in terms of getting a big box ourselves, because we were looking around going, well, we've got to protect the Swansea, you know, numbers, which was dipping up and down, and then obviously we were taking little snippets as we were going along from all these gyms. So we were taking what these really small independents were doing properly, and what the ones with loads of money were doing. Paused it for this kind of, you know, 6-7 years. That's where we dabbled in some other little bits and pieces, you know, other stuff, properties and things. But I think that pause actually did us some good, really, rather than jumping in. So then when the COVID come, well, it was just before COVID when we started to build the warehouse, which you've been to. We had almost like time off to use all of that kind of like bits that we'd grabbed from everywhere, because COVID stopped everything, didn't it? So we designed it, we did it from the ground up, and we were plucking. Oh, remember that place that we went to in Bristol? Remember that place we went to Cornwall when we did this? That was good there, that's nice there, that wasn't there. So although it was hugely like negative at the time, and we kind of weathered the storm, which like probably a lot of people didn't, you know, like from it, it probably in the hindsight did us good, in the sense like put the brakes on, stop, do our thing up and down the M4, waste loads of time, don't get me wrong, driving everywhere, doing all, you know, hanging bags up. Like I must have hung 10 million bags, he must have 100 million, like, you know, in the nightclubs, picking them up, picking them down. So, you know, we kind of did our apprenticeship through that time, and it was like the best worst time, if you know what I mean. It's like learning the ropes. So, you know, it wasn't all negative. They did give us a kind of like platform to make.
Yeah, a lot of time when competition comes in, it makes you innovate a lot more.
Better, like,
and it makes you a better version. I always say, you know, if you have strong enemies, you'll make a better product. And I have never shied away from competition, because I believe the competition gets best out of you. And you're a classical example of that. When Exercise for Less came into your space at £10, I can absolutely I know how you felt, because it just, you know, I remember when I had first competition coming in, and I was like, man, this is disaster, because you know, you don't have an undo. You just can't shift your base. And you, the first thing you do is you get scared. You say, you know, they've got all the money in the world. They've got everything, you know, that's required. They've got a big brand. They've got a big marketing budget. How am I going to live with this? And to that, it gets me to one of the most important things I noticed about your gym. Your quality of instructors, right? So in my previous episode, when I was talking to Ollie about this, Ollie Machon. And you know, the idea of this podcast, of this series, is around gyms which are about the training and not at the real estate play. A real estate play is very different. You get really nice lease sorted on your property. You get a good debt on your equipment. You lease the equipment out. You get the best rental deal. And after that, it doesn't matter, because you're going to win. You're 100% going to win, because the deal's such. You're time sharing. There's nothing to do with trainers. Trainers are self-employed. They do whatever shit they need to do in the gym.
Yeah.
And not taking anything away from budget gyms.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong here. I think budget gyms have done a lot of good service to the industry by getting
Bringing
more people on the
in,
fitness bandwagon. But at some point of time, you need to move away from that and try to look at your own personal journey. And that's where boutiques come into play. And I remember I wrote about this, about your gym. I think you're the big box boutique, because you're very big in terms of the size. It won't be fair to say you're boutique, but in terms of how your gym is, it looks like a boutique gym. It's an experience in itself. And people come in for a tour to see that gym. So that's a big achievement. So you should pat your back for that, what you've been able to do. But going back to the entire software, I say, a gym's got two bits to it. One is the hardware, which is your kit, and Chris, you can buy kit for $500,000, I can buy it for $1 million. It's not that thin. It finally boils down to the quality of instructors you've got, and which is where you've differentiated yourself very well. I've always had this challenge personally when running a gym, that how do you get good talent and then keep finding good talent, keep training people, keep upskilling them. How have you been able to do that? And how many trainers do you have in your gym at the moment?
We've got about, I'd say, probably 20 to 25 trainers.
And these are all employed by you?
No, not all employed by us, but a lot of them work on a self-employed basis, but they've got very strong ties to the gym. So I'd say we've got a nucleus of probably 15 who I would say are associated with the gym, and then you're probably looking at another 10 then who are just freelance personal trainers that use the gym. And I think you're right. I'd probably say it's one of the hardest problems that we are up against now is maintaining the quality of the instructors, because we've got them there now and they're there. Myself, probably being the oldest one there now, I'm 42, and then down to my sort of I got a girl who's coming through now, Liv, she's 17 and she's going to be brilliant.
Wow.
But the secret is to have people who are within the class who learn off the likes of myself, Dylan, Kerry, Gemma, Josh, Jamie, and then that is how they're going to get good. They almost need to, and it is the only way, because I've done loads of interviews with people and they've turned up with a CV, tech, yeah, you got this, you got that, blah, blah, blah. I've chucked them on stage and they're awful. And there's no point in me mincing the words, but they just have not got it. They might have it on paper, but they genuinely haven't got it. And I'm not saying they couldn't have it, but the fact that they don't know our style of classes inside out is why they'd get eaten alive if they jumped onto the stage in Swansea on a Friday night with 120 people there.
But then how do you scale your business? You can't do this all your life, can you?
No, but we can scale it by adapting our classes slightly, and this is what we are currently doing at the moment, and it does work. And I spent 3 months out in Ibiza this summer, so I was out of the equation. My sort of main personal trainers, they are slowly building businesses in their own right, so they're not taking as many classes. So the business is adapting as we sort of not go off in different directions, but as our circumstances change, as a family, I was personal training out in Ibiza for 3 months, just as an experience, just to do, which meant then that the classes had to not survive, that sounds a bit dramatic, but operate without me there. And don't get me wrong, probably not quite as where I would like them to be if I was taking them, but they still stand up on their own 2 feet, because the product is still good. It's just trying to bring that next sort of generation of instructors through and try and find a way where elements of the style of class are still there, but get it to the point where it's a little bit more automated.
And using technology and stuff, which is more relevant now. Do you mean? So using the good sound system, using LED light walls, bringing in a DJ plays in ours, so use it. A lot of it is the DJ as well, isn't it? With how the DJ interacts with the instructor, not just putting it onto the instructor and letting them go, because then it's like when we had restaurants, the chef has got you literally by the balls. Anyone with a restaurant will tell you that the head chef is the one who's in charge. You're not in charge. They tell you, and then they can hold you to ransom. And it's the same with the instructors. If we look at other sites now, we're then in the hands of the good instructors, which you still need to have them, and they have the part to play. But it's automating that product a bit more, and then training those ones that we
But
do
tell
have.
me, when you try to automate the product, don't you lose the soul somehow? How would you now replicate that bit? And I'm just
Yeah.
trying to be the devil's
No,
advocate here.
Go on,
Oh,
sorry,
go on,
Jason.
mate. Go on. Soul is in the is from the music, and the element of the instructor is the passion, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's how much they drive the class. So it's not, and no disrespect to a lot of gyms, you'll go to the classes and they're just doing it because they're on the rota to do it, and they've got to go and take the class because it's part of their day job to do.
Correct.
It's not with this. It's more of the passion has to show through in the energy, I suppose. And with the right DJ, with the right music, with the right environment, you suppose you get that energy as a byproduct of it, don't you know? If you're in a good class with the full lighting system, the big sound system, etc., you're going to have that extra 10% because of that.
Yeah. So Jason, my question to you is, don't you think that can get copied then? If it's all about equipment, LED screens, because I think you're a lot more than that at the moment.
Yeah.
How do you scale it is going to be very difficult. I mean, I would feel without people, and then your big strength. Yeah. When I spoke to your members and I spoke to your staff, they actually feel this is their gym.
They do.
There's nobody who feels like an employee, and I spoke to a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think if we say that the budget gyms coming was probably our biggest sort of obstacle up until we opened, I would say what we're talking about now is our next biggest obstacle. And that, is good because it means that we have to think about it. We can't be sort of arrogant enough to think that we are the best instructors ever. And they are out there. It's just how you find them. And that, so as much as it's a challenge, it's not, we're never going to recreate this. We're going to recreate it. We definitely will, because now we know what we need. We've tried it with people that might not be, where we need them to be. And that's mine and Jason's job now, is to get these people, to get them recruited, train them up, install that sort of, that ethos that we've sort of built it off the back of. My instructors in Swansea, they know how much it means to me. So I've ingrained that into them. My members know how much it means. So it's ingrained into them. They give back what the instructor gives them as well. If the instructor's giving them everything they've got, they are much more likely to come back. And then all of a sudden, that energy combined, that elevates the room. And that is definitely a challenge that we are going to be up against. But, when we're looking at potentially branching out into London and stuff, it's one of the biggest cities in the world. There's going to be some amazing instructors there.
Amazing talent,
with the talent pool is going to be there. I think Swansea, we got a little bit of a closed shop because I think
a lot of talent move out. Do you know what I mean? Any of the smaller cities, they move out, they go into something else if they can't make it. But I think as well, Samir, that in terms of not just the people but the product, things they can copy one element of it, but we call it the big box boutique is because we did our apprenticeship effectively as a small boutique gym with Funky Pump, albeit in grungy little boxing gym type setup, but we feel we've evolved elements of loads of boutiques and putting it into a big box now. So what we're going to open next time is not going to be just the Funky Pump studio. There'll be a hit studio, there'll be a high rock site, there'll be spin, and it'll all have its own character and its own personality, but also within a big box. And I think with Swansea, that's what we've achieved, is that big box environment, but kept that soul of the boutique. And on staff, one of the other things is we recruit front of house and we recruit instructors. So a lot of the front of house that you would have met don't have level 2 or level 3 or anything qualifications. They're recruited for the job. Do you know, so they are a certain character on the desk. They're the smiley people that say hello to everyone. They're the community. They're part of it. So, I think that can be the problem sometimes when you've got the instructors whose job is to do something else, and then they got to serve people and they got to come back. It just gets a bit lost in translation. I think those are a small element of why it is a community then, rather than why people feel like it's their gym. It's like when you go to a hotel, you have the people who check you in. They're not the people who clean the rooms. They're not the people who are doing the pool. It's a team. So I think that's where probably going back to one of your questions you said earlier about why do people like to work for us or why do they like to do it, it's because it's that kind of team environment rather than just like numbers.
The sort of the dynamic between me and Jason, I think he's probably tamed, like I was like, right, funky pump, boxing, bag class, high intensity boot camp, blah blah blah. Then like he'd say to me, oh, some of my mates just want to go and lift weights. I'm thinking, yeah, lift weights with a kettlebell or a dumbbell and like do a functional move. You know, like I was a little bit stubborn in my chain of thought, and Jason, from being from a different sort of, I don't know, thought process and like, I don't know, habits that him and maybe some of his friends, they open me up. Like some people do like to go into the gym and not be beasted. They like to walk on the treadmill or ride on a bike or, you know, just split their, you know, their chest, their triceps, their biceps up, you know. So like, it was good to have that contrast of points of view, because the fitness industry is bigger than like one style of class, and I think it's opened my sort of chain of thought up, and I've opened up now. Like we're building a Pilates reformer studio at the moment. Like, you know, if you'd asked me 20 years ago if I thought I'd have a Pilates reformer studio in my gym, I would have laughed at you. But now I understand there's a massive, massive market for it. Yeah. Can you see what I mean? So I think like I've sort of matured, I suppose, as well in my sort of the way I think about things. And like, as much now you've sort of like raised the point now about like the how much legs has that uniqueness got in it. I still believe that there's plenty of legs, because we are getting good instructors through. Like my eldest son now, he's going to be the next one that comes through. He's 15. Like I can see that he's got it. You know, a couple of his, like you know, they are out there. I'm just giving you examples of people that it's not as if we are the only 6 instructors that can deliver this class to the level it needs to be.
So how do you scout talent then?
From within a lot of the time. From, you know, we literally, you know, we earmark them and, you know, pull them to one side and say, look, would you be interested in getting involved? I want you to, you know, to come down the front a little bit more often, you know, get actively sort of like involved, like literally shadowing one of the main instructors, you know, as often as you can. Because my best instructors, they were in the front row of every class 6 days a week, and that is why they know it inside out. So it's not a coincidence that Dylan, Kerry, Josh and Gemma have probably done more funky pump classes than anyone else. Now they are the best instructors. Can you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Their apprenticeship was done in the class. And I see it in the classes now. I look around and think, right, brilliant technique, good intensity, great attitude. I even watch the way they walk in and how they speak to other members. You know, if they give them the time of day, give them a nod. You know, that's how we want to recruit. Like when we open a gym, we've probably got nearly 50 staff now. We didn't put an advert out at all. We literally handpicked every single member of staff. Yeah. Because I thought, right, I want her, I want her, I want him, I want him, I want that. Because I watched the way they held themselves and their sort of mannerisms, their body language, their attitude. Most of them were members already, and just the way they bounced up to a class, how was you going? All right. Think, right, brilliant. That's the type of person I want on the other side of the desk.
So personality does is a large component of your hiring process. Huge point. Right. So if I want to work for you, Chris, you know, if I'm an individual, I want to work for you, what's the best way to apply to you to the Ware-House Gym?
I always say, and like loads of kids do it, and a lot of parents now message me and say, Chris, my son, he loves fitness. Say, right, this is what he's got to do. He's got to come to the classes. And I would say 85% of them don't come. So I just, you know, that's the end of it for me. Yeah. You know, if they haven't got it in them to come and start doing 3-4 classes a week, they don't want it enough. And that is it. Like, you know, and there's no point, there's no other way of sort of saying it, because the ones who did, they are still here today, and they've got amazing little businesses off the back of it. Dylan, Josh, Kerry, Gemma, they've all got amazing businesses off the back of those funky pump classes.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, I think you've raised it before on the other podcasts, is like, these days people don't want to do anything for free, do they? So, like, it's much harder these days to get someone to come down and do, basically, it's like not working for free, but you are kind of doing your apprenticeship for free. and like
I would do it for free. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's something I can't get my head around. You know, when you're
Yeah.
early in your career, if I have an opportunity of working with you, I would actually fucking pay for it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to Dave Wright in my zone, and
Right.
you know, if I were to emulate myself and I were to look at, say, if I want to look at Elon Musk, what's the best way of doing it?
Yeah.
You just go and say, I
Go
will
and
work
work for
fucking
him,
free
like-
for you just to
Yeah.
see what
Yeah,
you do.
yeah,
If
yeah.
I can pick up bits and pieces from there, I don't
Yeah.
think the next generation is thinking.
No.
Right, you know what they're thinking at the moment is, it's just how much money am I getting for the hours I'm putting
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
I think the first 5 years of your career you have to be like sponge, absorb
Yeah.
as much as possible. I used to tell my students, to tell them, boss, you need to be like a work magnet.
Yeah.
If you're getting any work, just fucking take it, because you learn.
Yeah.
You know, look at pilots. When do you call somebody a good pilot? You say he's got 3,000 hours under his
Yeah.
belt, 4,000 hours under his belt. You know,
Yeah.
you say lawyers practice. Why do they say practice? Because the more
gotta
you
learn.
practice, the
Yeah.
better you get. So if you practice for 25 years, you're going to be a good lawyer.
Yeah.
So early in the career, if I am getting an opportunity to work with the best in the world, I would say, screw the money.
Yeah.
I just want to get the right exposure. Make your CV,
Yeah.
Yeah.
put weight to the CV. And the only way it'll happen is by putting in those hours, bending your back and
Yeah.
doing it. I don't think people are doing that enough at the moment.
No.
And I that's how I genuinely feel about the boys that work for us now. Like Dylan, Josh and Kerry.
Those
like,
boys are gems.
you know, I'd be taking the class year, they'd be there. Like they almost move
Yeah.
a split second before me because they know it so well. And like it sounds cheesy, but that is how well they know how I want it to be delivered. And like this, that's what I need. And this, they are about. Like I said, we've sort of targeted a few people, but it's definitely getting harder.
The difficult part's going to be when we go somewhere else. So if we go to London, for example, then it's
Yeah.
not, you haven't got those people who are coming into the class straight away. So the recruitment policy would have to change, obviously a little bit. But the first 2 years we'd be there constantly anyway. So that would be the first.
So tell me what's next for the Ware-House Gym.
So we're looking at a site in London.
Mm-hmm.
Which we're negotiating at the moment. So like obviously it's a totally different
Fingers
environment.
crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Get the money down, get that lease down, like you were talking about. So obviously London's a very different animal to South Wales and Swansea. Some stuff in Ibiza that we're trying to do. Chris will say we got the Gorilla Games, which is like our High Rocks version, which we're obviously different to High Rocks, but something that we're trying to work on. So yeah, just getting those kind of commercial products out where we can take them across the UK. So like Swansea's we've done, it's stood the test of the COVID and the energy crisis time and stuff like that. So we kind of trying to let that one settle on its own, and then let's see what we can do over the next couple of years, kind of branching out and fulfill the potential of the product.
Chris, your tips to people who want to be entrepreneurs. You've had I think it's a very difficult journey, because when you start from absolutely nothing, and you build something, what you built, it's not easy, right?
No.
That's what they say. You're an overnight success in 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's been difficult, and I know that you've had your ups and downs. And in entrepreneurship is always more downs than ups.
Definitely.
So your tips to young entrepreneurs.
I think you'd have to say, I think you've got to be overly confident in what you're working towards. I think the fact that I knew, and I was so confident that I knew it was going to be tough. I knew I was going to have bad times. I knew that some things wouldn't work and you'd probably hit brick walls. Never for 1 minute did I think that what I was trying to do wasn't going to work. That was the thing. I was so confident in Funky Pump, the bar classes, that concept. You got to almost be blinded by it that you believe in it that much to make it really work. And even as I'm sitting here saying this now, there was definitely little wobbles where I thought, you know what, I've had a good run at it now. Maybe it has run its course. And I've had a couple of little wobbles here, and I can say it now because we've rolled them out and it's still going. I took a class on Monday night and it's nearly 19 years now. And I still had the same buzz as I was taking it 19 years ago. It was still 50, 60 people in there. Same on Saturday morning, and like, so it stood the test of time. It must work because those people are still turning up this long ago. In terms of the tips, I think, being organised, I made so many mistakes. Like, I think organisationally, I probably could have done better. I think being organised is very important. It's hard one because you've almost got to make the mistakes as a youngster to realise, and I've got young boys working for me now who are making mistakes on a regular basis, but it's only exactly the same as what I was doing. So I'm trying to tell them to not do it, but at the same time they have to do it to know that it's not good. So I think one thing I would say is to not beat yourself up about it too much. That's important. You've got to be prepared to bounce back. People are gonna, mock you and maybe not believe in you, but you've got to have thick skin to sort of ride that out as well.
Yeah.
You can't get put off by stuff like that. You've got to just keep ploughing on. And I think the one I try and speak, like one of the boys I spend a lot of time in, Josh, like, if you keep doing things right over and over and over, eventually it will all start clicking into place. But you've got to do them right, and don't lie to yourself. Because I've lied to myself, and that doesn't get you anywhere. You can say you're working hard, but if you're not working hard, you'll get found out. You can say you're doing things properly, but if you know you're not, I think that's a very important tip.
Yeah, I think also don't be afraid to fail in entrepreneurship, because like, as long as you learn something, like we've done loads of clangers, like, and like they are what they are, they're good stories in the pub basically then afterwards, because you've come through them, and but as long as you've learned something for it. And I think my biggest one, because I'm not afraid to ask, is just don't be scared to ask stuff, because there's always someone out there, whether it's financing, advice and stuff. Like you said at the start, someone can only say no. And I think a lot of people, they think, oh no, I can't raise this money because but there's always someone out there. There's always a way to wangle that 10k or to get his 5k or get this year. There's always something. And I think the more creative you are with financing, we've got a long way from that, when we didn't have money. And I think it's just asking.
On that note, thank you so much, Jason.
Cheers.
Chris.
Thanks.
Appreciate your time today.
Pleasure. Thanks,
very
mate.
much.
Thanks.